everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Two Idiots Podcast. I'm Reg.
I'm Randy.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming with breaking news.
Breaking news. Support for the Two Idiots Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-belt waist grooming, and Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels.
Ooh. Manscaped just launched in the UK and also in Canada. We've gone years without using the right tools for the job. You can be one of the first men in England and Canada to experience their life-changing products.
Absolutely. You know, we've all been there where you're shaving below the belt, you're getting ready for a date, you know, maybe going out for an anniversary dinner.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're getting a little vigorous, you're not paying attention because you've been there before. All of a sudden, boom, you feel a sting, a pinch.
Yep.
Next thing you know, there's blood everywhere.
Yep. I've definitely gone there using subpar products when you're kind of trimming the hedges a little bit, going around, you know, making ornaments, you know, making things look all nice.
For sure.
But then you definitely get the little rip and tug, the little nip.
You know, we all just want to keep it fresh, and that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team has perfected the greatest ball trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0 in the UK and Canada.
3.0, the Lawnmower, which is a great name. I love it.
Oh, it's excellent.
But their third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents like this. Oh, look at that. Look how shiny that is.
Ooh, look at that. Now, when I tell you this thing's premium, I mean premium. This battery lasts up to 90 minutes on a single charge.
Now, if you have to take 90 minutes, you should maybe do it a little more often.
Yeah.
But you can. You know you can.
For sure.
Things get out of hand. You know, you let the grass grow in a little too long. Like that, you know, the neighbor beside you that never cuts their lawn. It's
Exactly.
like that.
Exactly. Now, you can also take this thing in the shower with you. It's completely waterproof. You can go in there. You can get all nice and clean, soap up. Maybe jump in there with the wife or the girlfriend, and
clean up
make
together,
it a team effort.
You know, make it a whole thing.
Yeah, there's some hard to reach spots. You know, we all need a hand every now and then.
Make a day of it. And speaking of hard to reach spots, it has a light, so it also works as a flashlight. Say you're in a pinch, you're going in the crawl space looking for Christmas ornaments, and you don't have a flashlight handy.
Hey,
bring your trimmer.
Look at that.
Your ball trimmer.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Dual purpose.
Yep.
That's all I want in my machines is something I can use more than one thing for.
Yeah, especially lights. You never know when you'll be. Say you're getting firewood for the bonfire. Bring your ball trimmer.
Absolutely. Now
Going
look.
camping.
Yeah. Now look, they've upgraded this thing to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. Ooh. You could have the in-laws in the house. No one's going to know what you're doing, right? Sometimes you're worried like, oh, they're going to know I'm in here. But no, not anymore. You got the quiet stroke technology.
As opposed to them thinking you're just taking an hour-long shit.
Yeah, exactly.
You can, instead, trim your nuts.
Exactly.
Not that you should be showing your in-laws your balls, but you could. You could. So let's not forget about the charging stand. Show off your mower, loud and proud. Look how stylish that is. Clean, cut,
snazzy,
stylish. You can show the in-laws this without any worries. So, yeah, it's powered by USB. And if you're listening to us speak right now, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself.
Let's get that bush to tush clean.
Ooh, zip it right off. Zippity-doo-dah. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code IDIOTS at manscaped.com.
Let's make your testes their besties.
The besties. Hey. That's idiots, IDIOTS, at manscaped.com.
Now, we can't urge you guys enough. Go help them out. Go help us out. That's, again, get 20% off with free shipping with the code IDIOTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code IDIOTS, IDIOTS. Your balls will thank you.
They will. And we will. Let's work together. And joining us this week, we have the director of the Bear Clan Patrol, Mr. James Favel. Welcome here.
Welcome. Hello. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So for folks that don't know, introduce yourself. Tell our listeners something about yourself.
Well, my name is James Favel. I'm a 52-year-old male. Live in the North End for the last 25 years. Trucker by trade, university educated in the 90s. In 2009, I bought my family home in the Dufferin community. In 2010, some of the things that were going on in my community inspired me to get involved with the local residents association. Okay. In 2011, I was elected to a position of board chair, and my community development work really took off that year. 2014, early, I would say February, March, we were considering community policing options because of the things that we were witnessing in the community that seemed to be going unchecked. And so we had members of cop Citizen on Patrol program come in and speak with us, and we had members of the Neighborhood Watch program come in and speak with us. And sadly, both of those programs have a criminal record component that disqualifies anyone with a criminal record.
Oh, wow.
I myself am a 4 times convicted felon, and so I wouldn't have been able to participate with the program I was trying to get up and running. So we had to go back to the drawing board and think on it some more. After Tina Fontaine's body was found in our Red River in August of 2014, there was a conversation I was having with my ex-wife and I, and it just came up, hey, we should try to get the Bear Clan Patrol back. And that's basically where it all started.
Okay. So basically with the Bear Clan...
so we went ahead.
What were we saying?
Sorry?
No, I was just going to say, so Bear Clan was already a thing?
So that's where it all...
Yeah. And it just kind of restarted, Bear Clan.
Well, I proposed it. So what happened was Tina Fontaine's body was found August 17th. In September, on the 18th, I'm a trucker by trade, as I said, an owner-operator, and my truck was in getting service, and I had some time in the morning, and I thought I would go down and support Drag the Red. They were formed and started at that point, so I went running down there because I had a couple hours, and when I got there, there was nobody there except the guy tending the sacred fire and a news reporter, and the news reporter sees me walk up and, just assumed that I knew what I was talking about, so come running over and ask me to speak about it. And I didn't really know much about it, but it was an opportunity for me to talk about, what I was doing with the Dufferin Residents Association. I mentioned that I was hoping to get, Bear Clan back up and running. That went out at 6 o'clock on the news. And the next day I was in Stonewall hauling gravel as I normally did. And I got a phone call from a colleague of mine from the Residents Association. One of the original founding members, Larry Morissette, was her professor at the time, and he reached out to her and said, hey, I want to meet with this guy. And so she called me and said that there was a potential meeting for us, and I said, sure, I'd love to. And I cut my day short and got back to Winnipeg, and we had our first meeting pertaining to Bear Clan September 19, 2014, around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And then I asked for permission to take on the model. They granted me that permission. It was never my intention to be so intimately involved with the program. I just wanted to see it done, as I was a career trucker and things like that. But they said, no, it's got to be you. You've already been on the news. You're recognizable. And I said, whatever, and I didn't think it was going to amount to much initially, but so things changed, and we are much different than we were when we started.
I believe that.
For sure.
Yeah, because even reading about it, it says basically an initiative that started with 12 volunteers has blossomed into more than 1,700 across Canada, which is amazing. So kudos to you. And
1,700 in Winnipeg, across Canada in the thousands.
Oh, wow. Okay. I misread it then. That's even better.
That's fantastic, yeah. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
What was, so what happened to it? Like, so it sort of just, it lost momentum before you took the reins and it just kind of wasn't active?
In the original iteration of Bear Clan started in 1992.
Okay.
And it was about, the exploitation that was going on in the community, the lack of support for community members and things like that. And so they took on the challenge. They did things quite differently, though. They were in vehicles primarily on the weekends, sometimes around the clock on the weekends. When we started, I decided that it would be foot patrols where we would be shoulder to shoulder with community members. I just felt that it would give us a better opportunity to, engage with our community. And so the original iteration again went from 1992 to 1995, turned into a bit of a workers' co-op. People started getting paid and things like that. And from my understanding, there was a death, one of the leaders at the time, and it just kind of filled after that. And it went into hiatus for the next almost 20 years.
Wow. What's the inspiration for the name?
Bear Clan in our traditional clan system is the clan responsible for the security of the village and for bringing the medicine. So it's very fitting for us to carry on that model. With our patrols, we are securing the neighborhood, and with the food distribution that we've been doing since 2017, we are bringing the medicine.
I love that.
That's good. What is a nightly patrol typically look like for one of your groups?
Well, typically the nightly patrol looks like, anywhere from 10 to 25 people gathering together, breaking down into groups of 5, covering the distance. We were covering between 9 and 12 kilometers per evening here in the North End.
Wow.
Since grown from the North End only to West End, West Broadway, Elmwood now, and North Point Douglas. Just here in Winnipeg, that's what Bear Clan is covering. Then there's all sorts of other groups that are, taking the reins and started their own kind of group patrols. IRCOM, Immigrant Refugee Center of Manitoba, they've asked me to help set up patrols in their communities as well, and they've been doing things, and I'm actually going back tomorrow to continue that work with them and make sure that they get off the ground.
Perfect.
Excellent.
No, I love that, because I recently read Red River Girl, the book based on Tina Fontaine's story and the trial and all that. And you're mentioned briefly at the end. So I was actually recommended that we get you on the show before I had even read the book or knew much of the story. Shout out to Tanis Bergen. And,
okay.
But basically, so we wanted to talk, and then I read the story, and it hit me. Like being we don't live in Winnipeg, but Randy and I both work in Winnipeg, and the local landmarks, the neighborhoods, the people that you see, the communities that are clearly at risk that you just see as you're around. It was powerful and important, and I'm glad it was written.
And it's things as, two dumb white guys like we are.
Exactly.
We don't think of a lot of these neighborhoods, right? And
that's true, and that's kind of a thing that we're both kind of wrestling with to get better at. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. But since you started Bear Clan, sort of, I guess, after Tina Fontaine's body was found, how would you say have you guys had some major successes that you could point to, or are things progressing, improving, or what do you think? Well,
I think we have had a real impact on the community, and it's subtle at first. The connectivity amongst community members is essential. That stakeholder mentality is essential to living a good life here in the community. People that don't feel like they have a say in their own circumstance, people that feel disconnected, disenfranchised, it doesn't produce good outcomes. And so that's one of the things that we really work very hard to do, is to try to give people that voice, try to engage them. There's that, we have a lot of criminality in the community, and it seems that when a drug dealer moves into the community, everybody closes their doors and closes their windows and tries to ignore it, but it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why we as a community would allow one person to move on the block and change all of our lives so drastically. So I've been working very hard to instill that feeling of empowerment that says, no, you're not going to get away with that here. We're going to stand up to you, and you're going to be the one who's going to change, not us.
Yeah,
and that's been what I've, one of the big focuses. And I'll tell you, our greatest success probably to date, and will likely always be, was the day we stopped the exploitation of a minor female in our community here.
Oh, wow.
Given that our program started in response to the tragedy surrounding the murder of Tina Fontaine, a young girl who was lured into prostitution at a very young age and subsequently murdered. When we first started out, I went out and had these shirts made. They had Bear Clan on the chest and Bear Clan on the back, and they looked really cool, and they're great for July. In October, when it started getting cold, you put jackets on, and all of a sudden the shirts become completely useless.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was my idea then. We went and got those high-vis safety vests. $9 for a vest. We're paying about $5 for one of those patches. So for about $14 all in, we got the patch sewn on the vest. That became our uniform.
Yeah.
In October 2015, when we first put those vests on, we were coming into the Lord Selkirk Park developments from the southwest. That's like Jarvis, Sutherland area.
Oh, yeah.
We were coming into the community, and there was 3 young women exiting the community. 2 of them were in their 20s. One was noticeably younger. And, we always engage with people we come into contact. We'd say hello and offer them a piece of fruit or something like that. And this was no different. When these 3 young women came out, they just wanted to know who we were and what we were doing, because this was the very first time that we had been dressed in that way walking through the community. So they were shocked to see us. And so, within about 90 seconds, I said, hey, we're just here at Bearcon Safety Patrol. We're taking care and watching out for people and things like that. At the end of the conversation, they were satisfied. And one of the older girls and the younger girl started to walk away. The other older girl, she stayed with me and she started to cry. And I was like, what's the matter? And she goes, well, they're going to do something bad. I don't want to go with them. That girl's only 13. And I'm like, okay, all the alarm bells are going off. And so I called out to the other two girls and I asked them to come back. And, we're not their parents. We're not the police, and they didn't have to. But for whatever reason, they turned around and they did come back to us. Mm-hmm. And there was a slight altercation between the two older girls. Why'd you have to say anything? Why'd you rat me out? And the little girl panicked and she ran back into the community. And the older girl, after having it out with her girlfriend, she bolted and took off, towards Salter. And we were standing there with that other young woman. And so I was able to ascertain after the fact that it was the intention of the one older girl that ran off to sell the 13-year-old girl to a 22-year-old male friend of theirs. And that's where they were going at that moment. Oh, wow. But because we occupied that physical space, because we engaged the people that we come into contact with, and because we cared enough to act, we were able to stop that from happening. Mm-hmm. And I always feel that is our greatest success to date. We met our mandate on that date, and everything else that we've done since then has kind of been, gravy, but I'll take it every day. And, and I still see that young girl in the community. She's not drug addicted. She's not street involved. She's living a happy, healthy life. And I feel that, we had a hand in that, and I take great pride in that fact.
For sure. It's an excellent story.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, so I imagine it's super helpful because, especially in communities that are historically over-policed and over, they're cracked down on, I imagine it's more helpful to have people that are willing to take the responsibility, but they're not wearing a badge. So it's more like, I guess you can relate better with the people in the community. I guess that's sort of the point, right?
Right. You're not worried about, catching shit for being out or doing whatever you're doing, right?
That's exactly right. We're there to de-escalate critical incidents before they become a police matter. We want to see fewer of our community members going away in handcuffs because of criminality. We want to see fewer of our community members going away in an ambulance because of addiction and violence. And we want to see fewer of our children caught up in the child welfare system.
For sure.
So wherever possible, we interrupt those systems.
Of course. Well, even I was reading a little bit as well, and it, I guess one of your goals or the group's goals is to facilitate connections, kind of be a mediator between kind of police involvement and the community. With everything going on with police and, the defund police movement and those types of tensions, how do you navigate that? How do you kind of get the groups together without altercations?
Well, one of the things we've been doing, and from the very beginning, was to include the police in our patrols, and not all the time, of course, but to make sure that they have an opportunity to come walk shoulder to shoulder with our community members. Again, we have generations of kids in our community that were raised with a fuck the police kind of attitude. And if you start a conversation with that, it's never going to end properly or well. So we always try to, again, if you eliminate myth and stereotype and replace it with fact and shared experience, you're going to have a better outcome. And so that's what we're doing. We're taking away, the myth and the stereotype and putting the two groups of people together and letting them experience for themselves, who these people are. And so the police are getting to see who the community is. The community are getting to see who the guys are behind the badges. And for the most part, it turns into something very positive.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. And we just keep doing that work because, I think we need to heal those relationships. We need to demonstrate that not everybody, has it out for us. There is a huge disconnect when you only see police officers blazing through your community, at 50 kilometers an hour. They become, they're something foreign and something to be feared. When you see them on the street and you get to talk with them and share with them, then they can become friend and ally. And that's the reconnect that we're looking for.
Yeah. Ultimately, you have to build a trust factor, right? And I think that definitely helps when you're able to integrate into the communities, right? They're doing it, in places like Baltimore all the time, where like bringing back the beat cop, someone who actually walks the community, talks to the people. They know, hey, that's old man whatever down the street, and this is these kids, and this is where they're from, right? So it builds that trust.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
And it's helpful to encourage the community itself to be able to learn the skills and the, I guess the skills and the tools and this just to be able to maybe kind of work from within and kind of do what they can to de-escalate and handle situations and hopefully not need so much police intervention.
Communication being key, I think. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, if you consider that the most time when our children are socialized, it's through the police are coming at the worst point in their life when there's trauma and negativity, and it's scary and through the when we have them on patrols, when we have them involved with our youth mock patrols, I would be thrilled to have some of those children walk away and say, you know what, I'm aspiring now to become a police officer, as opposed to being afraid of them.
Yeah. No, I think I was going to ask whether you think that's happening, or whether you want that to happen, to have more, I guess, Indigenous people. Yeah.
It has happened already.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
A young man that came to us on our youth-oriented mock patrols has gone on to become a police officer.
Wow.
Excellent. Have you seen an uptick in youth coming to volunteer for those patrols?
Well, we had been seeing an uptick. We actually got the program in February 26th, I believe, was our first foray into we were actually taking the youth-oriented mock patrol program into schools. I think General Wolf was the first school, but then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so it all came to a screeching halt, and so we're still looking to get back to that.
For sure.
Right. How have things changed for you guys since COVID hit, like with the patrols? And I know I've seen you guys have started delivering food hampers.
So we had been doing food distribution since 2017, and in fact, food distribution was always kind of one of the things that I like. Right from the very beginning, we started walking. I would go out and get a couple bags of oranges, a couple bags of apples, and we would hand those out as we go, granola bars and things like that, because it's just a good way to establish a relationship or rapport with your community members.
For sure.
That grew 2017. I think we did 20 tons of produce and baked goods.
Wow.
2018, we did 62.5 tons of produce and baked goods delivered directly into the community out of the back of my pickup truck.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and then 2019, when we got our dedicated space at 584 Selkirk, we did 145 tons of produce and baked goods. The center was open almost every single day of the week. People could come in. It was a barrier-free food distribution program, no ID requirements whatsoever, so people could come. They could get, it would be kind of like a shopping experience, because we would have, the bread and pastries on one table, fruits and vegetables on another, and it would be spread around the building. So people would come in, they would be offered a sandwich, a coffee, some dessert style food, and then they would go to the donation tables and pick up a couple of things to take home with them, some bread, some pastries, apples, oranges, fruits, vegetables, things like that, and they could go home. And we didn't give a lot of food, but we gave enough for them to survive a day or two, and then they were welcome to come back the next day if need be.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Yeah,
and I think that's one of the key aspects to our program, though, is the barrier free. We don't require appointments. We don't require IDs. Even the food banks in the community require government issued ID. And unfortunately, that stratifies our community even further, where we already have marginalized people without the proper identifications are not able to access even food banks.
Yeah,
and so that's where we came in, because without that requirement, they are able to access the foods that they need and live better lives for it.
Yeah, and a lot of those communities are technically food deserts, which is very common in a lot of inner cities core, where in those neighborhoods you see a lot of convenience stores, 7-Elevens, but not real grocery stores. Mm-hmm. You see a ton of those.
Buddy, I I live on Stella between Mackenzie and McGregor.
Okay.
So I know. And my corner store, you can get crack pipes and bongs, but not fresh produce or meat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I've counted it once. It's like I think there's something like 11 7-Elevens on Henderson from, what is it, something like Logan North or something like that. Like it's incredible, the whole area.
Well,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot, that's for sure. I grew up in Elmwood myself, and I think the first 7-Eleven starts at Harbison, right on Henderson Highway, and then, they keep on popping up as you go down.
Yeah.
I actually grew up on Harbison East.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's incredible that because we take it for granted. Again, Randy and I are both white guys from southern Manitoba that, we haven't experienced that, but it's super common that in these types of areas that if you want to go get, like, we go grocery shopping, quote unquote, right? Whatever that means to people. But a lot of people in these areas, they either have to go out of their actual neighborhood to find anywhere to get food, or they just eat either fast food or whatever you have there, which, is obviously, everybody knows it's not great for you. But what choice do you have, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I see people coming home with bags full of groceries from Giant Tiger.
Yeah. Right.
You know that's not healthy food. It's all that yellow stuff, and it's garbage. And that's the truth of it too. And then again, when you consider with our marginalized community members, the ones that are surviving on EIA, their daily living allowance for food or never mind, their daily living allowance is about $4 a day.
Wow.
When you consider it takes $4 a day essentially. When you consider that's basic needs, clothing, and all the other things that they require, as well as food, transportation, it takes $3 to get on a bus, $6 if you want to come home. So if they're talking about going, to a grocery, like for me, when I go grocery shopping, I jump in my car.
Yep.
And I go to Riverbend or I go to Henderson Highway, Sobeys, because that's where the best selection of food is. Mm-hmm. For many of my community members don't have that option. And again, transportation costs, can eat up a day and a half of their resources without, even netting them any food.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, that's
when you talk about
crazy.
Job interviews, when you talk about medical appointments, when you talk about training opportunities, again, these things are all they're all made out of reach because of just its associated costs.
Accessibility, and that's wow. That's another point of privilege that I hadn't really considered much. But basically, when I was reading River City Girl, one point they're talking about is there was the two Nigerian fellows that were suspects at one point, and apparently part of their thing was that they would offer rides to people in the community for money, right? So basically, they were a taxi service for kind of the downtrodden or the people that were kind of floating around, which to me it sounded strange, but if you don't have the money for a taxi or you don't have your own car, which many people don't, it's a weird barrier that I didn't realize existed.
It's like you're going to do what you have to do to survive, right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yes, yeah, and then again, that makes us vulnerable to criminality and exploitation, and these are not healthy things to be vulnerable to.
No, absolutely not. Well, and another barrier too is a friend of ours was saying, a former guest, he mentioned that he had friends that lived in the North End, and basically taxi drivers would charge like a surcharge on anyone that was Indigenous or a person of color or anything. They would charge like an extra $20, $30, $40 just to let them into the car, unless this guy would accompany him, even though the irony is that he's Métis, but he looks white. So they're like, no, you have to come with him, and you have to pay extra. So that's another, burden or barrier that, again, most of us don't consider. No. Like, I can hop in my car and go wherever I want, and I don't have to worry. It's really tragic, like that has to be the way it is.
It really is. Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible. So basically, with for whatever reason, it seems right around, I think it's Henderson and Logan, kind of, there's been several kind of those tent cities being kind of congregated and built up. It seems like it's happening more and more.
Disraeli, Logan.
Yeah,
yes.
Disraeli,
Higgins and Logan, yeah.
Do you have a theory as to why that's becoming more and more common, or anything about that?
Well, I'll tell you, if you listen to the people that are occupying these homeless camps, they'll tell you, first and foremost, the money that EIA provides for rent does not get you a decent place. I've been working with kids in the community here through Nineveh Youth Drop-In Center for years. And like there was one girl that I started working with when she's 15. Now she's like 19, 20. And, she calls from time to time, her and her boyfriend, when they move into a new place and ask me to help move because I got a pickup truck. And so I helped them move. And I helped them move into this address on Manitoba this winter. And as soon as we walked in the door, like she was all excited. She got her place for her and her boyfriend to be at. They got a little bit of furniture, a bed, a night table, and we walk in there and we're in there for not even like 10 minutes and I killed 6 cockroaches. Oh. The smell of effluent and other garbage is just really strong in the house. You go to the sink and it's one of those old cast iron covered with what are they covered sink with the rusty drain that was, when you turn the water on and the water starts rushing down into the drain, it starts backing up immediately and bodies of cockroaches come out with it. Oh, and she's paying $7.90 a month for rent there.
$7.90.
Wow.
$7.90 a month for rent there, yeah. And it was just abhorrent. And so when you talk to the people that are occupying those camps, they're saying, well, look, the money doesn't provide us a decent living. The homes that we get to live in are cockroach infested, bed bug infested, dirty, smelly, gross. The landlords are jerks. A landlord that would rent to a child an apartment in that state is not a quality person. Not somebody we need. Renting to people in our community. That property should, by all means, have been bulldozed. Quite frankly, it's really beyond repair, but it's still out there. Wow. And it's still occupied, and that's what's scary. We need to better housing stock for our community members, and again and then a lot of these people, there are mental health issues. Mm-hmm. There's criminality issues. They're afraid that if they have a mailing address, the cops will find them and arrest them. And some of them just don't want to live under the thumb of some oppressive landlord kind of figure. Yeah. And this is why they choose to live feral. We need to find solutions. Again, like I've been from the very beginning, UBI, Universal Basic Income. Yeah. It's always seemed, like the right go to me. With COVID and the CERB benefits and things like that, and now all the talk surrounding UBI. I'm thrilled to death that it's on the table and it looks more promising now, and because it's affecting the wider community, there's a greater chance that something like that may be enacted. And I'm I don't care how we get it as long as we get it. But the reality is, people living in and experiencing this type of blinding poverty that we are experiencing here in the North End, living in crisis mode does not produce the best results. Living in crisis mode is stressful, and it this is where we get exploitation. This is where we get drug addiction. People are self-medicating to escape their lives, and I can't blame them. And not everyone has the tools, to deal effectively with these kinds of traumas and repeated, insults to their intellect and their character and their bodies. And so we need to work harder as a community to prop up those people on the bottom ends, and those people that are in those camps. They are the ones that need the most help. And I see, the city's big idea of supporting them is they bought them a big garbage bin to throw the garbage into.
Yeah, that sounds like the city.
What the? It's like that's, you missed the mark, boy.
Yeah, by a bit. Yeah. Well, with UBI, I feel the same way. It's and most of the people that are against it, in my experience, from people I know that are against it,
don't need it.
Exactly, the people that have never been below the poverty line for any length of time, or at least not like abject poverty that a lot of these people that need it would be subjected to. Yeah. So it's easy to say from your your suburban house, even if you're broke, like we don't have a lot of money either, but like it's easy to say that when you have a house and you have a car and you have a job and you have all these things, you don't realize our advantages. It's easy to say, well, why would we give money to everybody? Even though the people that we'd be getting it from, long-term benefits of UBI is basically less strain on healthcare system, likely less homelessness, less criminality, more education, more, access to resources. It would flood money back into the economy. I mean, if you look at it long-term, it seems worth it to me.
Yes, and I think that last thing you touched on, that returning the money back into the economy. If you were considering UBI for the North End, all of that money that comes in is going to turn right around and go right back into the community, into the stores for the food, clothing, transportation. It's all going to end up right back back in the economy, and that is helpful. The studies have been done. 2014, I think they did a study where it showed that a person living in poverty, like homeless in poverty, costs the city about $54,000 annually with the services that they're accessing. For a person to live a decent, healthy life, it can be achieved on about $22,000.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's going to save in the long run the economy money to solve this problem rather than leave it to fester. And I understand that the bureaucracies, social workers and EIA, like the whole provincial EIA bureaucracy, that would fold up, and it would go away if we had the UBI. There would be a small administering body, but it wouldn't take up all that resources, and so those people would need to retrain and find new jobs and things like that. But these are people with education that have the tools to adjust and do better for themselves. When we're talking about families in the community that have been surviving on EIA, they've seen their grandmothers, their parents, and themselves all go through EIA. What do you have to hope for?
Yeah,
for sure.
How do you escape that? I mean, I know that people escape it every day, but it's a very thin margin of people that have those tools and that can escape, and the rest of them are stuck here. And we want to have better for our community members. I hate to see people hungry.
Yeah.
I hate to see people sheltering under a doorway because they don't have any place better to be. I see people sleeping in bus shacks. Like, again, I live on Stella between Mackenzie and McGregor. When I leave my house, I see it every day. I come out of the house this summer. There was a woman who tried to hang herself in a tree in the lot next door. I come up in the evening, 11 o'clock on a Friday evening, and there's like a 20-year-old Indigenous woman standing there, no shirt on, just her pants, and she's out of her mind on methamphetamine, and there's nobody there to support her, So I have to pick that up. 2 days later, I see a young man. It's like 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon or something like that, and he's standing there in his underwear and socks at the store on the corner, and he's out of his mind on methamphetamine. And again, we have to address these issues, and it has to be a much stronger response if we're going to save these people's lives and get them back into the economy, into the community. Sadly, what we're seeing is children younger and younger using that methamphetamine, and it destroys minds. And it's not a temporary destruction; it's a permanent destruction of their brain. They turn certain parts to leather, and the 14-year-old child, what hope do they have to live a productive life if they're damaged at such a young age?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially, in many cases, they've grown up malnourished, or they've already kind of had hardships, and now if you're doing substances
now
like
you're
that,
adding this to it.
Yeah, what choice do you have? What options do you have? Do you feel, speaking of options, do you feel like, from an outsider's perspective, like we're out of the community, we don't live in Winnipeg, but we always get the vibe that Winnipeg does a lot of posturing, and they say a lot of things, and they,
all talk, no action.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Does it feel like that to you, or do you feel like the powers that be are actually trying to make an effort?
I think that there's been a slight increase, especially with COVID. There's been a shift towards helpfulness. But I'll tell you, the reason why I started Bear Clan in the beginning was because we were over-policed and underrepresented. We had it was all talk, no action. We are the boots on the ground that are community has been crying out for. It didn't cost millions of dollars. It didn't take years-long studies. It took good people getting off the couch, getting out of their comfort zones, and getting into the community and taking light into those dark places others fear to go. And we really need to see more of that.
For sure.
Absolutely.
No, I totally agree. How with your groups patrolling, if they come across an altercation or someone's being aggressive or physical, or have you had issues with patrols being, whether, not necessarily attacked or being people being aggressive, and how do you then navigate that?
Well, so there has been a few instances, and I'm saying few instances where people, actually came out and challenged or tried to be aggressive towards the group. Most times, one of the reasons why we like our groups are no smaller than 5, led by our women, and we have men in the groups, and for the most part, people aren't coming out and challenging the groups that way. There's the odd occasion when somebody's intoxicated. There was an occasion last winter where there was a young man who was walking down a street in the West End, and he was carrying a weapon, and our group just happened to be traveling in the same direction. The young man felt threatened and turned and pointed a pistol at my group, and they just backed off and walked away. But again, our goal, our role in the community is one of support, and so we are not there to. We're not trying to see people more arrested, right? We want to see situations calm down so the police don't have to be called. So for the most part, we are seen by the community in a positive light because they know that we're not there to arrest them. We're not bringing, handcuffs with us. We're bringing hand warmers, and we're bringing, oranges and apples and granola bars and things like that. And so when people see us, they're most times they are very happy to see us. We are also an ear for them to speak to. So when they have an issue, they can come and say, hey, my landlord's doing this. Hey, the house next door is throwing needles into my yard. Can you help with that? So we're picking up those needles. We're addressing those issues. People come to us and say they have they want to get off the street drugs. And so we're helping connect people with those resources. We're helping connect people with educational resources here in the community. ID clinics, helping people just like getting their ID so that they can register and vote.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the role that we have in the community. So it is very infrequent for someone to be angry with us.
Yeah, which is great. That's amazing.
You've built that trust through the years, right?
Yeah, and they know.
And that's exactly right. It didn't happen overnight.
No. Well, that's the thing, right? Politicians, and whoever else. It's always very like, we're going to do this and it's going to help tomorrow. It's going to solve the problem tomorrow. And then it's like, well, if it takes 5-10 years, they're like, well, it's not really worth it. Do I get anything out of this? And it's a bummer. But it seems grassroots kind of community involvement. It's amazing what you guys do. And I'm glad that you're doing it because someone had to, right? And now that you're across Canada,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you planning on going like maybe into the US or into more cities in Canada, or kind of what's the plan?
Well, we go wherever we're invited.
Sure.
But that's the key, is we have to be invited. We never assert ourselves. Again, it's always been about community people, helping community people. When, I got called from Calgary, last year, and they wanted to start a community patrol, I send them a copy of our policy procedures, governance documents, constitution, bylaws, all that kind of stuff. But it's their job to do the hard work, to build it and to make it work. We're not I'm not going to be transplanted into another market and come and fix them. They have to do the fixing.
Right.
But that's the key to this program is it's about empowerment. You identify some leadership in a community, and you give them the tools to create something like this. And then next thing you know, you've got Calgary, you've got Lethbridge, you've got Edmonton, you've got Wetaskiwin, you've got Ocean in Manitoba, you've got Regina and Saskatoon in Saskatchewan, you've got communities popping up in Vancouver now, all through Manitoba, and in the city of Winnipeg alone, we're seeing like a dozen different patrols now that have popped up, or at least we're serving at least a dozen communities here in Winnipeg. Everything based off our model, and even some loosely based off our model, but we've demonstrated that it's doable. that it doesn't cost millions of dollars, and people find a way to contribute, find a way to give back and be part of that solution. It's knowing that there's a viable alternative to sitting on the couch and watching everything happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's less about you parachuting in to save the community or solve their problems. It's more about giving them the tools to hopefully rebuild themselves.
That's what I was going to say, because if you just come in to be the savior, now you're no better than, say the police force that just comes in and does their thing and leaves, right? You're not building that community with them. It's sort of a teach a man to fish thing, right? You give them the tools, and if they want to do it and they want to push through, they're going to.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That seems to be the way to go.
It does, right? It works.
Yeah,
for sure.
I wanted to touch on before we start dialing it down. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you were recently removed from the board, and now you're back on the board, and there was some sort of politicking going on. Is everything solid there?
Well, so when we first started back in 2014, I was project coordinator.
Okay.
Project coordinator turned into clan council member, turned into director on the board of directors. I was the board chair, turned into executive director. I was hired to be executive director in May of 2016. And so my tenure with the organization, as a founder, was, it's very important to me. And we had a falling out with the board of directors, some 9 men and women. It started earlier this year, January, and things started to deteriorate. And I'm not used to, how do you say this? I'm not used to having the interference that was being put forward by my board. So I resisted it. I said no. I spoke out against the racist comments by one of the police officers that was on our board of directors. I spoke out against the board overreach that was occurring. I spoke out against some financial spending that I didn't agree with. I spoke out in favor of defunding. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, I found myself looking for a job.
Wow. I'm glad to see that you got voted back in, or that's how it works, right? It came to a vote that they were reinstated?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in July 31st, I was dismissed as executive director, and I had no role with the organization. They were trying to tell me that I could not even represent myself as Bear Clan anymore, and that they were trying to take away my identity, and I wasn't super comfortable with that.
Yeah, makes sense.
I found a way to get back, and it was really very, very simple. It wasn't an election year, and so I put myself in as a nominee, and look what happened here. I got elected as a director, so I'm back on the board of directors, and there's a lot of work to be done to unfuck this situation, but I'm the guy to do it. So
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember I was reading some of the commentary kind of about you being removed and kind of joining back in, and you had kind of made some comments. Basically, you wanted the board to be representative of the community, and it seemed to be slowly not. Mm-hmm. Is that still your mandate? You kind of want to have kind of more Indigenous involvement in the board and that type of stuff?
Yes, and again, it's important. It is always, like I said earlier in the interview, it's about community people helping and supporting community people. Yeah. And right now, I think 2 directors have addresses in or near the R2W. The rest of them come from outside of the community. And even if they came from the community 25 years ago, they're not here now. And as I always said, it's not about people coming into the community and telling us how to live. It's about us, finding our own way. And unfortunately, this is where we are right now, is that many of the board members, Charleswood and Kingston Row and South St. Patel, and they're coming in here 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, telling us how to live. And I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be some pushing around yet. And, we had 600 members sign up after the incident, or the happenings in July. Mm-hmm. 600 people registered as members because they wanted to have their voices heard.
Wow.
Because of the way the election was, virtual election. It was complicated. It wasn't well explained. Email addresses that were given for questions weren't even associated with the organization. So there was a lot of people who didn't get heard. Some 400 members were disenfranchised from the electoral process at this most recent AGM.
Wow.
And so I'm going to find a way to have their voices heard, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's
as you should.
That sounds so sinister and exciting. I'm curious to see how it turns out.
Good for you for sticking to your guns, though, man. Because there's a lot of people that would just say, "Well, okay, I'm out. See you later." But I'm glad you stuck to your guns and you found a way back in, and you really want to change things.
Yeah.
This is my life's work. My mom passed away in January. Battled with cancer about 7 months, and my mother supported me all of my life. She was always there to speak to talk to bounce ideas off of. She's always there to prop me up when I felt bad, and all throughout this whole process, she watched me grow it from nothing, and it turned into something. And I'm so thankful that in January I was right at the top of my game there, and when she passed away, she was so proud, and she left with those memories, and I'm happy about that. I'm glad she didn't have to see what came next. I'm glad she doesn't have to see what's coming, I'm just this work that I do isn't for me. I'm set. I'm a career truck driver. I got my semi parked in the backyard. I own 2 homes, one in Elmwood, one here in the North End. I just bought a new bike, and I'm doing well, The rest of my community doesn't have that same experience, and I want to help to lift everyone up. And it's just the work. Like I said, the work that I do is not for me. I'm all right. It's for my fellow community members. I woke up one morning, 2012, summertime, the house next door. My neighbor standing on his porch, peeing on my fence from his porch, and I'm like, I'm a retired bouncer. I have 10 years as a bouncer in the local clubs here. My first response was to run over there and grab him by the throat and knock him out, but I didn't. I resisted that. And then you look at it and you wonder, well, why is he doing that? Mm-hmm. And then are you there?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So upon further inspection, I noticed that he was running an electrical cord to the house next door, because he was without hydro. He was also without water. So it was a cry for help. He didn't have water, couldn't use his plumbing, so he's peeing on, letting everybody know that he was in trouble. And that was one of the things that, that galvanized my efforts to help support my community. People shouldn't have to live like that. People shouldn't have to have, no toilet to use in their home. Yeah. And then, the hydro comes in, or water, the city comes in and condemns the house because of that. And now you've got somebody who's homeless because they don't have water. Well, why can't we make it so that there's a better way that they can get their water turned back on again, and we'll work out a payment plan later? Or, EIA should help address these issues in a better way. There's sure. better ways to do things. And I just wish that we were acting on them more.
And I think something to take away from that too is, how many people would look at that guy and just go, oh, well, what an asshole, and walk away, right? They don't think about, well, why is he doing this? Exactly. I think that's definitely something we could all do more in our daily lives, is take a look at the reason maybe why someone's acting the way they are. And if you can, offer to help, or just find out about their story. And if you can direct them to somewhere where they can get some help.
Yep. I totally agree. And there are systemic things and systematic things that we can and should be encouraged to do, and have our governments and our cities and our support systems built from the high level, but they take forever, and whether or not they work. But on a base level, yeah, you're right. We need to, think about, like what you said, James, basically wonder why this person is doing what they're doing. Instead of condemning the action, wonder what compelled them to do it, right? Because I hear so often. Yeah, exactly. I hear so often where they're like, oh, lazy fucks, go get a job and blah, 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 blah. Like, why don't they go do this? Why are they doing that? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, but the people asking that normally aren't actually asking it, because they've already built it in their head of why these people are doing it. Oh, they're just garbage people or whatever, right? Instead of actually wondering what happened in your life or their life that brought them here. Because now think of me, Randy, you, anybody that's listening. We're only, at most 3 months away from, being homeless if things go totally tits up, let's be real. And it's just, we need to think about it from a perspective of these are fellow humans, even if they're hard up and they may have done things that they regret or, made mistakes, or we need to be a little bit more compassionate, I think. And that's hugely important for everybody. And I'm so glad that Bear Clan exists. My first interaction with them actually was at the Black Lives Matter protest in Winnipeg, whenever that, it feels like forever ago.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, basically you guys were out kind of corralling the supporters and the protesters, and we had a very safe experience. There was no altercations. It was all very clean. I loved seeing the patches and the interaction between, the Indigenous and the Black community and other peoples of color. And it was great. It felt very empowering and very inspiring, and it made me feel hopeful, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. That's a job well done then.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I'm coming at it from the perspective of a privileged white guy who hasn't had to experience it. So for me, just seeing like the communities meshing and seemingly working together, and I don't know, it's amazing to see. And I've been trying to work harder and learn more, educate myself and others as well as I can about these things, even if it doesn't affect my day to day. I want to shine the spotlight, especially. That's why I'm glad that you joined us so quickly. When I invited you to join the show, I was actually chatting with a friend who's working on kind of some creative stuff regarding the Tina Fontaine story. And basically he mentioned you, and then I was like, I did some Googling. So I did. And then I messaged you on Instagram, and you replied immediately. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm glad that you joined us. I appreciate this for sure.
No, my pleasure. Again, one of my jobs really over the last 10 years is to try to get some positive messaging out from our community. They're always so happy to focus on the addiction and the violence and the poverty and things like that. But the media doesn't typically want to showcase the resiliency that exists in the community, the good things that are happening, the people that are out there day to day fighting to make it better for not just themselves, but their fellow community members. And that's been my job, is to try to bring light to some of these things. And again, to say that we've come from 12 volunteers in the community of Dufferin to a organization boasting some 1,700 volunteers, now internationally recognized. I was in Abu Dhabi with the World Urban Forum in February, talking with people from all over the world. I mean, it's really grown. It's really taken hold, and it's demonstrated its value and its purpose. And I just want to see more of it.
Absolutely. No, couldn't agree more. Sure. I assume you guys rely pretty heavily on monetary donations, food donations, all that stuff. Please plug websites, donation options. Where should people send their support if they're so inclined? We
have a Canada Helps funding platform. It's similar to like a GoFundMe, but we are a charitable institution now, and so that we can issue tax receipts. So anybody looking for a tax receipt can go ahead and look up Canada Helps and Bear Clan Patrol Inc. and bam, you got it. You'll get a tax receipt for your donation. Food and things like that. We have the Den at 584 Selkirk. We have 565, 563 Selkirk. You can take things and basically our typical working day is between about 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 to 9, depending on the day. So people can go drop things off over there. Food is always welcome. Sometimes clothing items are necessary. We do clothing giveaways in the community as well. And so, it just anything that's useful, we can find a use for. We can find a home for here in this community.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Okay. Well, we're coming up on an hour. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm really glad that you were open to joining us. And thank you for the support that you've given to your community. And I hope that people listening will have learned something and maybe felt compelled to contribute or to learn more about the issues affecting those of us around us. So thank you so much, James. This has been great.
It's been awesome. Changes the perspective, of one person. We've done our job.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that this continues. I hope that you guys have all the luck in the world. Hope that you're able to to smooth out the wrinkles at the board and within the organization. And continue doing your thing.
Keep doing the Lord's work, man. Get out there and
keep
help
watching.
people.
Yeah, awesome. Keep
Thanks,
patrolling.
man.
Keep helping. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, James.
Yeah.
This was great.
Right on.
All right. Have
Bye-bye.
a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Do I just hang up now?
Sure. Awesome. Okay, so again, that was James. How do you say Favel? How did he pronounce
I believe
it?
he said Favel.
Favel. Okay, because I'm terrible with last names, so
Me
I'm
too,
probably
buddy.
gonna do it
Me
wrong.
too.
We're just gonna call him James. Yeah, that I'm so glad that he joined us, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot there. Like if people,
For sure.
if you want to help, like we mentioned before, something around 18% of the province is Indigenous, and in Winnipeg, most of the North End is Indigenous, and people that are supplanted from their reserves, or they come in and they have to have an appointment or something, or they get lost in the system, or they that's typically where people end up, and it's a community that could use help. And I'm glad Bear Clan is floating around and helping people.
Absolutely. So, if anything, I hope it inspires people to get more active in their community. I mean, be it in Winnipeg or wherever even you live, just to help the people that need it, right? Yeah. Not everybody's got a job. Not everybody can afford a house. Yeah. So if you can help out, please do, because it's the nice thing to do. Yeah. Be a good human.
Yeah. Weird. That's sort of a low bar to achieve, but a lot of people fall way short. So definitely check out their Canada Helps website to donate or donate some food. Randy and I both work in Winnipeg, and I work in and around those areas. So if you ever have any donations, you can pass it along to us.
For sure.
And I can, one of us will cruise around and we'll get it to where it needs to go. So definitely check them out. Find us on social media, on Instagram at Two Idiots Podcast, on Facebook, Two Idiots Podcast, and on Twitter, Two Idiots Show.
And by email, doubleidiots@gmail.com.
That is the one. So please support us while you're at it. Follow, like, subscribe on all the things. All the things. Tell a friend. Reviews are hugely impactful and helpful to us.
Absolutely. They have to help get us out there a little bit. Just,
oot and a boot. Yeah, get us out.
We got to pump those numbers up.
Pump. Those are rookie numbers. Yeah. So thank you all for listening. This has been another great, empowering, powerful one that I really enjoyed.
It's been wonderful.
So thank you so much for listening. Have yourself a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.